Reckless adventure is the fool's hazard. In other words, impulsive risks without careful thought, that's a one-way ticket to disaster. And right now, Ukraine's President Zelensky is playing with fire. However, recent reports indicate that, while Ukraine remains open to negotiations and a ceasefire, Zelensky is still demanding more military aid, advocating for greater NATO support, and taking bold risks to keep the fight going, essentially gambling with World War III. But here's the twist: while he doubles down, the West is suffering from self-inflicted wounds, and as the war is turning into an embarrassment for Washington, so it now appears that the US is no longer willing to back Ukraine. In recent weeks, the geopolitical landscape has experienced significant shifts, particularly concerning the dynamics between the United States, Ukraine, Russia, and the European Union. After a heated exchange in the Oval Office between Trump and Zelensky, the Trump administration suspended all military aid to Ukraine just 3 days later, while Russia intensified its attacks. Trump also restricted Ukraine's access to intelligence and weaponry, further limiting its strategic capabilities. This decision has left Ukraine increasingly vulnerable, and Europe is now carrying the burden of sustaining Kiev's war effort. But that's not the only crisis Europe is facing. Right now, the continent is drowning in economic turmoil, drowning in crises, political infighting, soaring energy prices, and migrant chaos, all adding to its pain and suffering. Yet, despite its own suffering, Europe has been the biggest provider of aid to Ukraine, allocating €132 billion in financial, military, and humanitarian assistance since January 2022, while the US has provided €114 billion, according to the Kiel Institute for the World Economy. Europe's self-inflicted collapse. Europe is causing its own downfall through reckless decisions. Billions wasted, economies on the brink, yet Brussels stubbornly clings to its unrealistic war agenda. European leaders bicker over aid packages, while right-wing movements surge, driven by public fury over soaring crime, runaway inflation, and unchecked immigration. Germany stumbles under its economic woes, Poland distances itself from Ukraine, and Hungary? It doesn't just reject Brussels' delusions, it openly mocks them. Moreover, Europe is experiencing significant demographic shifts due to immigration. Europe is experiencing major demographic shifts due to Muslim immigration, rising from 4.1% in 1990 to a projected 8% by 2030. Higher birth rates and younger populations drive this growth, sparking debates on integration, security, and crime. Germany faces rising tensions due to significant influx of refugees and migrants. Austria's FP fuels fears of Islamization. Meanwhile, in the UK, recent data shows that foreign nationals are 71% more likely to be convicted of sexual offences than British citizens, with individuals from Afghanistan and Eritrea over 20 times more likely to be convicted. UK immigration reached 1.26 million in 2022, with net migration at a record high of 764,000. Economic strain, cultural clashes, and political instability grow, with calls for stricter immigration policies. France is in turmoil, with riots and violent clashes becoming almost routine, driven by ethnic and migrant tensions, Islamist attacks, religious conflicts, police shootings, and racial unrest. France and Italy battle record high debt levels. Meanwhile, economic hardship grips the continent. Germany's once mighty economy is on the brink of recession, thanks to skyrocketing energy costs and deindustrialization. While the mission was to hurt Russia but led to economic challenges within Europe, including losses in various sectors, such as agriculture and manufacturing. But still dreams of defeating Russia through Ukraine. Europe can't even handle its own chaos, but wanted to cripple Russia, instead crippled itself, now begging the US for more cash, while its own people suffer. What a brilliant strategy! At this rate, Europe won't just lose to Russia, it'll collapse under its own incompetence. Zelensky left hanging but pushes for tougher sanctions. Ukraine's front lines are crumbling. Entire battalions are being encircled, cut off, and annihilated. Kiev's troops are outgunned, outnumbered, and trapped, with no reinforcements, no supplies, and no way out. While Russian UAVs dominate the skies, destroying convoys before they reach the front. Ukraine's supply lines are in ruins, morale has collapsed, and NATO advisors are scrambling to explain their failure. The so-called counteroffensive, over. It failed. Despite all of this, Ukraine still refuses to back down. President Volodymyr Zelensky has been actively advocating for stronger sanctions against Russia. In recent peace negotiations, he emphasized the need for the United States to take decisive action, including imposing robust sanctions if Russia fails to honor a proposed 30-day ceasefire agreement. Like the saying goes, once committed to a dangerous course of action, retreat is not an option. And that's exactly where Zelensky is right now. Even Western media, once complicit in the charade, is now admitting the truth. The same media that once promised victory now shifts its tone while Western analysts scramble to justify Ukraine's collapse. But let's be real, this isn't a withdrawal. It's a collapse. As Ukraine loses ground, Russia is destroying its infrastructure. Missile and drone strikes are knocking out the power grid, setting factories on fire, and leaving cities in darkness. Without electricity, Ukraine can't move troops, produce weapons, or keep its economy running. The truth is, Ukraine's ability to fight is being erased, piece by piece. The West gambled everything on Ukraine winning. Now that gamble is failing. And the worst part? They have no exit strategy. Admitting failure would destroy their credibility. But doubling down risks an even bigger disaster. So what's next? Will the West finally face reality? Or will they continue this losing game, throwing more money and weapons into a war that cannot be won?